Hello everyone, Mel here. I'm currently in what was once a gravel quarry that has now filled up with water and become a pond, as you can see around here. I'm not sure how well the camera is at capturing it, but there is a sunken canoe or small boat here. People aren't really supposed to be here fishing or anything like that. It is a protected area, at least the areas around it are. But that seems pretty old, so it's probably a remnant of place. But yeah. I'm here to do another review, and today I want to talk about a manga and anime series, although primarily I will be talking about the manga, that is very special to me. And as you can see, I am reading a script. I cannot for the life of me remember everything I wrote about this, but yeah. I will be talking about Mysterious Girlfriend X by author Ryuichi Yoshiba. So, this is a relatively old manga, and a relatively old author too, having debuted back in the 90s, I believe it was the 90s, with his work, Discommunication, which I will actually talk about in a later video. One of my favorite works, one of my favorite authors. I love all his works. He has a very peculiar way of showing romance, and showing really daily life, by mixing it in with the supernatural, often in like occultish ways, if that makes sense. But yes, I want to talk about Mysterious Girlfriend X, which is his most popular work. That's what he is mostly known for. Most people don't even know he has other works. And Mysterious Girlfriend X is a manga that I often reference in many of the things I do and say because of how impactful it was to me in my teenage years as I was growing up. And I mean, I look pretty young, but I am 20, so although not very old, this manga has been with me basically since I was maybe 12 years old. Along with, as I mentioned, Discommunication and another manga, Watamode, this one is probably one of the ones that impacted me the most in my life. At least in the transition from what I believe to be childhood and adulthood. And I'm primarily making this video because I noticed that I've never really have written a formal review of this manga anywhere else. As many of my friends will know, I write a lot of reviews everywhere. Sorry, there's a dragonfly flying around. But also because a lot of people seem to view this manga as kind of weird because of things I will talk about if you haven't read it, or boring, I've seen it called, and some people even go as far as to say that it's disappointing because of its ending, which I completely disagree with. It is not disappointing. I believe it has a beautiful ending, but I'll get to that eventually. But that's why I want to do this review. Even if it will only be seen by a handful of people, I want to put my opinion out there. Not that it matters too much, but I want to put my opinion out there for people to know. And a lot of my opinion, a lot of the things I've formed about my opinion are probably not my own. A long time ago, I did watch a video on Mysterious Girlfriend X, which probably impacted the way I view it now. And I also talked to a lot of people who were also big fans of this manga back when I was younger. Not growing up, I'm still growing up. But yeah, this manga goes into the theme of young love, which is something often referenced and often shown in many manga, and other forms of modern media, really. Often to the point where it kind of gets a little bit overwhelming with how much there is. And the main reason why I'm kind of opposed to this being shown in modern media, at least to the point it is now, is because young love is something that's hard to portray. Although it's not impossible, it's just really, really hard to get it right. And yet, it's very ubiquitous theme in modern media because of the way we romanticize things. But I don't know. After a while, it just kind of forms. They all kind of feel the same. It homogenizes, I guess, and it just forms what many people now call slop, the romance slop. But that's, of course, just my opinion, and I don't really hold any value in any of this. I'm a nobody, as I've mentioned a couple of times before. But Mysterious Girlfriend X is a little bit different in that it's a little bit more refreshing. It's more original than other manga, although it does at some points fall to the vices of the modern romance slop, I guess. It is slightly different, and that's nice. I really like it. So for those of you who haven't watched the Mysterious Girlfriend X series, or haven't read it, which I highly recommend you do before watching anything past here in this video, because I will be spoiling a lot of it. But the series follows the developing relationship of characters, Akira, there's a train, of Akira Tsubaki. I hope the audio still comes out very well. But yes, it follows Akira Tsubaki and the titular Mysterious Girlfriend X, Urabe Mikoto. I hope I'm pronouncing this properly. But Tsubaki is just some average boy, some average high school boy, filled with all the anxieties and worries that you have, you know, throughout those days of going in the midst of puberty. With this, of course, comes the fact that he is now really romantically interested in the opposite sex. He likes girls, which I feel like a lot of us can relate during that time. It's very awkward. And it seems that by pure dumb luck, Urabe transfers to his new school and even sits next to him. Which, you know, is a very, very common theme in romance manga, but I mean, what can you do? Tropes are tropes for a reason. It seems to work very well here, at least with the way the author did it. But yeah, Urabe sits next to him, but you can immediately tell that she isn't an ordinary girl. She's a little bit different, a little bit stranger. And I don't mean that in like the modern, quirky, not like the other girls type of way, but, you know, slightly more, is this girl psychotic type of way. But she frequently spends her break periods sleeping and even kind of pushes away all the other girls that try to interact with her and try to get to know her. Really, anyone that tries to get to know her, she pushes away. However, one day when Tsubaki forgets his lunchbox in his classroom, he goes back to get it and he sees Urabe sleeping in her desk, just like with her head down and everything. He, of course, does, you know, what most people would probably do in that situation, and he wakes her up. As she wakes up, she looks up at him, and he's able to see her face. And upon seeing her face, he immediately falls in love. It's one of those love at first sight type of thing. But yeah, he falls in love with her, and she doesn't really notice, but she keeps on going. She leaves, thanks him, and leaves. But as Tsubaki lays there, you know, just confused, he sees a puddle of drool that she left on her desk. And doing something that I don't think most people would do, he puts his finger on it and tastes it. He immediately notices a very sweet taste for some odd reason and blushes. A couple days later, he gets a fever. He gets a really bad fever that he has to miss class for a couple days. And seeing this, Urabe visits him at his home and lets him know that he's going through love withdrawal, which something that I would have never thought I would say out loud or really talk about. But yeah, love withdrawal. He basically is sick because he has not tasted the drool of the girl he loves. This marks the beginning of their deep psychic connection, and one which will allow them to intimately communicate complex feelings and emotions by feeding one another their drool, which I know sounds very weird. And I mean, it is very weird and kind of disgusting, but you just have to bear with me, because this is a very effective figurative tool. This is used throughout the manga to create its own language of affection, similar to something like a hug we have, you know? Sometimes when you want to communicate some very strong feeling to someone you really love, instead of saying it to them, hug them. Or a kiss. That's actually probably more akin to a kiss, although used very differently throughout the manga. And the topic of a kiss will come back later. So, this is so effective, though, because it allows the characters to experience sexual desire and perversion as part of normal emotion through the drool swapping ritual. It's so refreshing because it humanizes these characters instead of making them, instead of making them the butt of the joke whenever they have some like erotic thought or some other form of like sexual desire, as often seen in manga or anime. Because both Tsubaki and Arabe experience these desires, and they're both slightly ashamed and slightly excited by these desires. But they're portrayed, these desires are, and these feelings are portrayed as a spectrum, rather than just, lust. They're portrayed as a spectrum. And this just kind of feels real. It reflects how most normal people will experience these emotions. And I feel like it does a really good job at doing that. However, this isn't really the only figurative tool that I think is used very good in this manga. The scissors that Urabe is known for, they're just the physical manifestation of her boundaries. When Tsubaki oversteps them, she retaliates. And although he never really gets physically hurt, the scissors manifest himself as emotional damage that he will receive from overstepping the boundaries, because she kind of keeps him distant. It's not because she doesn't like him, but just because she's shy, This is her first time experiencing a relationship like this. And most people, even Tsubaki himself, are shy and kind of, I don't know what the word would be, but they're just shy and they don't know how to express their feelings properly, so they kind of end up being on the cautionary, or that's not a very good way to put that. They're very cautious about it. Oh. Yeah. And oftentimes this shows, you can see it because their displays of affection are often very short and awkward, like my whole video here. But these small sexual aspects are integral to the manga and its themes. And in fact, I believe this is part of what Ishiba wanted to portray in this manga. Because at the end of Volume 2, he writes a small essay, and I will read an excerpt from the essay, that explains why his characters are always 16 to 17 years old. In it, he says that this age is in which, if two teens who like each other were to spend the night together, they might have sex or they might not, because of how new and experienced sexual arousal is. And thus, I believe he created this manga to kind of dance around the themes of sexuality without directly engaging with them. To kind of portray that age between where one is going from the innocence of childhood to adulthood, which, although I don't view sex as an indecent type of thing, I guess in the society, because he is saying a lot about Japanese society at that time, which I am not educated enough or qualified enough to talk about. But yeah, he is critiquing it in some aspects, and I believe this is a very, very nice thing to do, and it's very well done. Another thing this manga also does very well is the acknowledgement that the relationship, despite their strong bond, is nothing more than just a teenage romance. Although it has the possibility to prosper and for them to be with one another well into adulthood, it can also end suddenly due to the transient nature of time. This theme is more prominent, especially near the end of the manga, where the death of Tsubaki's mother is explored a bit more, and it's revealed that his sister was also in a high school relationship when she was his age, that ended suddenly after they both kind of just drifted apart after graduating, because they didn't because it was hard to keep in touch during that time specifically. These events are talked about, but the wounds of these events have healed, and all that really remains is just a bittersweet memory of them. Time moves on. Just like with Tsubaki and Arabe, they have changed a lot since they first met, and they will continue to change further into the future. And it's this realization that Tsubaki comes to that is the reason why at the end of the manga, in the final chapter, when you think that they are about to kiss, which has been hinted at for the whole manga, they decide not to. It could have ended with a big kiss, the climax to the whole series, but I think this ending fits much better. They chose to maintain the status quo for just a bit longer, to cherish the moment that they well may no longer have in the future. The manga ends with a sunset behind them, which I kind of wish I had, but it ends with a sunset. And although it is the end of a day, it means that a new day will soon come. Thus, the manga leaves us with an open ending. It's tough, and it hurts, and I wish we had a conclusion, or I wish we had some other manga to tell us what happened afterwards. But I can't help but smile at that ending, because I think it's perfect. It perfectly describes and represents what teenage love is like. There's that uncertainty that you really love this person, but you don't know if you will be able to spend your whole life with them. But yet, continuing to maintain that status quo is all you can do, and see what the future holds for you. Because whether you break up or not, they will end up just being bittersweet memories in the end. You'll move on. Time moves on. This whole area that I'm in looks so much different many, many years ago. But time has moved on, nature has taken its place, and just like a relationship, everything will end at some point, whether it be through death or through personal time-related things. Doesn't really matter. It just is what it is, and I think this manga does a very beautiful job of portraying that. And here is the end of my review. I've gone on for way, way too long. I'll probably have to cut this video down, but I hope you enjoy my review, and I hope this reaches someone at some point, and that you're able to at least share some of the opinions, or at least view it from my point of view. This has been my reviews with Mel. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you later.